Hi, Kent Williams on behalf of the DuPage County Chiefs of Police Association, and I'm here today representing the heroin subcommittee that has been tasked with looking at this heroin epidemic that's so alarming to the DuPage County residents, communities, businesses, and schools. Nationally, this Chicago metropolitan area has become known as a spike and an epidemic. It's really become the heroin highway nationally. And the chiefs have gotten together in DuPage County and really tasked ourselves to look at some unique and creative ways to combat this epidemic that's infiltrated the well-being of our communities. Now, what we know is that this problem impacts a cross-section of communities. There is no one particular community. There is no one particular area of the county. It cuts across all age groups and all socioeconomic groups. In other words, this is an equal opportunity epidemic. Recently, we spoke with the DuPage County Coroner's Office, and Dr. Jorgensen advised us in the month of July alone, there was 18 heroin-related deaths, the youngest of which was 15 years old, and the oldest was 64 years old. So you can see that this is a true epidemic that cuts across all boundaries, and thus, we have ramped up our enforcement efforts, and we have realized over the last several years that we can't enforce our way out of this epidemic. We can't arrest enough people. We can't confiscate enough drugs. It's here. And so we've really come to the belief that this is more of an educational process, and we've put together an educational initiative. And we truly feel blessed today to have Nick and his mother, Kim, here today. And Nick is a self-described heroin addict, and he is here to serve his cause, and Colleen, which is to protect young teenagers in the DuPage County area. So I'm here to ask Kim initially. Kim, welcome. Thank you for being here. Nick, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for your passion and your commitment. Kim, tell me a little bit about Nick growing up. I mean, I come to understand heroin addicts aren't born heroin addicts. I mean, was he a good student? Was he an athlete? Tell me a little bit about Nick's background.
Yeah, he was a good student, and he was an athlete. From the age of 5 years old, he played hockey up until he turned 21, 22 years old. He didn't sit in front of video games. He was always outside playing, always. So yeah, he had a normal childhood.
Did he have a grounded sense of friendship? I mean, did he have a good group of friends, fellow teammates?
Yeah, he had an awesome group of friends, which today, who are, a bunch of them are he's still in contact with. But yeah, there was nothing unusual about his childhood. He was a happy-go-lucky kid, and always on the run, always on the run, playing hockey. And I mean, they'd never played video games because we didn't buy a system. We wanted them to play outside. And that's what they did. And when he wasn't at the rink, he was playing roller hockey at the end of our court.
So
yeah.
True active student and athlete.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. He played for private clubs. He played for the high school. And then he went on to play junior hockey in another state.
So Nick, what happened?
For me growing up, I never felt like I really fit in. And playing hockey, I have a great core group of friends. But growing up, I never felt like I fit in, and various obviously hockey injuries can happen. I broke my collarbone a couple of times, and I was introduced to Vicodin. So I had a normal childhood. I have a brother that's 4 years younger than me. We live in the same house. He's in the Marines, and I'm a heroin addict. So this doesn't discriminate. It doesn't pick and choose. I was just...
Now, how old were you when you had this injury for your collarbone?
I was about 17,
And
18.
that was sports related?
Sports related.
And the doctor prescribed pain modification?
Correct.
For that? And
correct.
you said it was Vicodin, and I understand Vicodin is an opiate-based
It is an opiate, correct.
Uh-huh.
So I'm 17 years old, and they're just giving me painkillers for a broken collarbone, a legit injury that needs medication for it.
Okay.
So and then it escalated from there.
Well, why do you think it escalated? Describe, how long was that injury? How long were you on the Vicodin?
It's hard to give an exact time frame, but I was on it for a couple months at a time, healing, and then I re-broke it. And I'd smoked pot during that time, drank, and it got really bad when I was a little bit older, and I had kidney stones. And they were giving me excessive amounts of opiate narcotics, and they weren't stopping. They were just giving them. And once I found out that they made me feel so good, I learned how to manipulate the doctors. And then I would go to different doctors and doctor shop.
Okay.
So I had an endless supply of opiate narcotics coming my way.
Legally prescribed by a medical
Legally
physician.
prescribed. Granted, I was going to multiple of them, but they were legally prescribed. And once they were cut off, I went right to the street for them. I didn't want to go through the sickness, which is the absolute worst pain I've ever been in. Physical, emotional, mental pain that I've been in.
Coming down
off
the pain
of it.
modification.
Coming down. This is just from the the opiate painkillers, and it's horrible. It's horrible. You want to jump out of your skin. You're sick. You're nauseous, and it's just the absolute worst feeling in the world.
So Nick, it's clear to me that you were a very successful standout athlete, a successful part of a team, and then you sustained this legitimate injury as a part of your athletics and required you to seek medical attention for a broken bone. And as a part of that, they prescribed pain modification, opiatic-based Vicodin. And it seems to me like they might have had you on that for a while. And then did they wean you off it, or did it suddenly stop?
It just stopped.
And did you find yourself in a biological crisis after that point? I mean, were you mentally and emotionally and biologically in crisis?
Absolutely. I was stuck. I had nowhere to turn.
Okay, so why don't you tell the viewers, describe that journey from that point on. So what we have is a great student, a great son, a great family member and friend and teammate who gets injured and hits this wall, finds himself in a crisis. And casually describe the journey from that point on.
Absolutely. So I was 19 years old. I went to play hockey in Cleveland, and I started dating a girl who actually turned out to be my fiance later down the road. And I was playing hockey and ended up getting kidney stones really bad. I had a kidney stone that required several surgeries with lithotripsy and stents, and the doctors at this point again are excessively prescribing opiate medications. That went on it was about a 14-month journey. And then I just stopped. I didn't want to take pills anymore. I see what it was doing to me. But at that point, I'm a drug addict. I'm a heroin addict, and opiates are part of heroin. And, so I've gone back to the pills and back and forth. I've done some pretty unmentionable things in my addiction. I've ended up in jail in Wisconsin with an excessive bail that my mother left me in jail for quite a long time. I'm now a convicted felon. In this process, I've stolen from my mother's security deposit box, her purse, family members' medicine cabinets. You name it, I stole it. Whatever was yours was mine, and what's mine is mine. I'm going to take it.
So it sounds to me like your ability to weigh consequences took a back seat.
You don't have no fears. My biggest fear was waking up sick, waking up that I wasn't going to have enough drugs to make it through the day, and then it quickly progressed to heroin and. Making 6-7 trips to the west side each day.
Now, why heroin?
It was the next step up. It was cheaper. The pills were way too expensive on the street.
It was cheaper.
It was cheaper.
So, in other words, to acquire legal prescribed pain modification from somebody else is expensive on the street.
Listen, I don't have a job. I don't have insurance. I'm stealing everything that is going towards my drug use. So obviously, I need to scale back my drug use and or I should say, the cost of it. And go to heroin. I couldn't afford the pills anymore.
So heroin was actually cheaper than the pills?
At the start.
And that's what we know in law enforcement now. Heroin is horrifically inexpensive to the point that seems to be the logical next step for somebody who may have been exposed to opiatic pain modifications and then suddenly stopped.
Listen, it started with a $10 bag. That lasted
$10 for a bag.
$10 a bag for a couple of days, and next thing I shouldn't say next thing, it progressed over a couple months span where I'm making 5 or 6 trips a day, literally from DuPage to the west side of Chicago, and I'm buying hundreds of dollars at a time.
How risky is that lifestyle?
I don't really fit in that neighborhood. That never stopped me. In fact, there was a time that it got a little sketchy down there, and I have someone I know is a law enforcement member, and I actually stole a gun from him because it wasn't going to be me. I'm driving down the west side, extremely fast, weaving in and out of traffic because I'm sick and I have to get down there as soon as possible. As a convicted felon with a loaded 9mm in my car, not thinking of any consequences.
Now you say you're a convicted felon. What was that conviction for?
It was for possession.
Possession?
Up in Wisconsin.
And have you ever, you say you were a pretty self-proclaimed thief. How about burglary? Any burglaries? I didn't steal anything, of like TVs and stuff like that, because I had to pawn that, and there was a process involved. There was a paper trail. So if I just go into your medicine cabinet, I'm getting what I want right away. So you were getting into other people's homes, and the first thing you would go to is the medical cabinet.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So now you're finding yourself on this daily highway down to the west side of Chicago, putting yourself at risk physically.
And lots of others in the process.
Yeah. And it seems to me like your support group has changed over this period of time.
Absolutely.
How has that changed? Kim, did you notice this change? What was going on during this period of time from the athletic injury to suddenly this all-out, full-on addiction to heroin? What did you notice during that transition?
You know what? I didn't really notice a lot because I'd be at work during the day, and that seemed to be when he would take his trips, you know, into the city and stuff. You know, I'd say, "Did you look for a job today?" Yeah. You know, I applied, and I'm like, "Really?" You know, so things used to just, I'd go, but I never went.
He's a heroin addict.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly. It wasn't until he quit his job that I went, and then he went to this other job, and then after a month, that job wasn't working. So he went back to his old job. And I'm like, that's when I really, something's not right here. I didn't know what it was because he hadn't been on pain pills for so many years. Why would I think he was, you know, going
What
to
was
the
going
city?
on there? Why were you flip-flopping back? Why were you job hopping so much? Was there a particular reason for that it affected the addiction?
When you don't show up, they start asking questions. When you're taking 3-hour lunches because you have to go to the city, when you're falling asleep at your desk, you're not really wanted there. So before they could fire me, I had to quit. I couldn't look these people in the eye. Absolutely not. I couldn't look them in the eye.
Wow. So it becomes a life of lies, and the addiction becomes number one.
Absolutely. You know, I would hate when I would have 4 or 5 people in a room and we'd all start conversing and something would come up and, you know, I have 5 lies going with these people. Now I have to come up with a Trump lie to cover all those lies and, you know, just the lying and the thieving and the manipulating and the, you know, that's just part of, you know, I'm more than just a heroin addict. I'm a thief, manipulator, jerk, whatever you want to put in there. You know, in my addiction, I'm somebody that I don't even know who that person is.
You become your addiction, and those who care and count most in your life truly become second-class citizens in your life, and your primary relationship is with the drug.
I stole from my mother multiple times. She had to put her purse in a safe in her room. I broke into her security deposit box. Like, I mean, who really does that? You know, and it's not something I'm proud of by any means, and it absolutely disgusts me that, you know, this lady who has been there standing the entire time by my side, helping at any cost and putting her needs second, you know, and I'm stealing from her?
Explain to people how powerful this addiction is. All my research says one time, it's a one strike, you're out. I mean, it's instantaneous. It's that powerful. It literally rewires the neurobiology of a brain. And I've read research from doctors and spoken to doctors who tell me one use of heroin, if you never use again, it's up to 41 years to fully recover from the damage done with one use. Now, what we hear, and it's just shocking to us, from the teenage population and from recovering addicts, and you know some of these, we've interviewed them together, a lot of them say, geez, we just wish we knew. We wish somebody had told us. And we were like scratching our heads going, wait, we thought it was common knowledge that you just don't mess with heroin. And it just seems to me like when I was a teenager, heroin was, we didn't even see it. And if it was an inner city, flop house, ghetto issue, and we never saw it. And if we did, it would be so shocking and so alarming because it included needles and burning things in spoons that it would be like, what are you doing? I mean, we didn't see it, but if we did, we know how we would have reacted to it, and it wouldn't have been favorably. The problem with what we're seeing now is it's so pure and it's so cheap, and there's no burning it in a spoon anymore or injecting it. I mean, we see that. Those are extreme cases, but right now it's just they're just sniffing it and getting that high and getting that instantaneous addiction. So that's what's so horrifying about this. It's just one strike and you're out, and we're losing lots of beautiful families due to one mistake. And what the recurring theme is, geez, I wish I knew. So, you know, that's why we're so blessed to have you here. And I don't think anybody wakes up one day and says, I want to do heroin. I think it's a process. That's what we're seeing is it's these processes, and these processes involve tremendously fortified, well-structured families who are supported at home and loved at home, and these aren't outcast children. So your story is really kind of reminiscent of what we're hearing all over DuPage County and across the nation, quite frankly.
Yeah, if I can interrupt you for 1 second, it wasn't a lack of love, you know, that I was missing in my life. If my mother's hugs could have cured my heroin addiction, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. And that's 100%.
That's interesting.
Her frothy emotional appeal, you know, where she wants the best for me, and And I could see it in her eyes, you know, and I just don't care. I've been sober for 1.5 years now, and I've been doing more funerals, you know, for people overdosing than I have my entire life. In all my 29 years, the last 1.5 years, I've been to more funerals than I've been to, and it's absolutely disgusting. It's you know, if I were to give, you know, my mom and you know, heroin for 4 straight days, you're going to do unmentionable things because it has such a grasp on you. Like, there is no way out. Once you start getting that first sick, where you know that you don't want to take the drugs, but that's the only thing that's going to make you feel, you know, normal. You're going to do anything. You're going to do anything. You know, it's you're playing Russian roulette down there. Whether it's, you know, with the drugs, with going to, you know, a pretty, you know, shady area, you know, driving high. You know, people are trying to cook it. I've seen friends shoot heroin before, and you know, I was grateful enough that I never did that, because they were just as addicted to the needle as they were, you know, the drugs and the lifestyle that you live. And it's, you know, what lifestyle is that, where you're stealing from your mom at 8 in the morning to be down in the city by 9 to be back there by noon, and over and over and over. It's like Groundhog Day. It's like Groundhog Day. And my brother, you know, is, you know, I'm fighting my own battle. My brother is in the middle of a war in Afghanistan. You know, he's in the Marines, and it had to have been such a horrible time for my mom and family, wondering who's going to die first. Whether it's going to be my brother taking an AK round, or, you know, her other son getting a hot bag. And you know, every bag is hot. I don't think people realize that. You're not taking Flintstone vitamins. This is heroin. You know, this is absolutely disgusting. It's killing people left and right, and yet we still are driven to, hey, we want to try that.
Kim, can you describe for us a little bit your journey throughout this addiction? I mean, how hard is it on the family? To me, it's just a horror story with 2 teenagers, and the common theme, again, what I'm seeing is these families are all well structured, and you see all these well-intended parents going, what could have I done? I mean, what do we have to do? Lock our children in a closet for 5 years? And obviously that's not reality.
Right.
So describe your journey.
It was horrible. You know, once I realized what was going on and started realizing the lies, I would question him and question him. He'd be like, Mom, how many times do I have to answer that question? And I'd say to him, until you tell me the truth. And of course, I never got the truth then, but he thought he was telling me the truth. It disrupted every being of your life. I still went to work every day because that was my sanctuary to not have to deal with it, confront it. But I'd come home from work and I got to go, and he'd run out the door, and it was just horrible. I can't even explain. I mean, I would come home from work and sit on the couch and just wait for him to come back, and hope that he would come back.
When did you get the truth? When did you know you had a bona fide son heroin addict?
After I left him in jail for 3 weeks. That was one of the hardest things I had to do too, but I figured maybe this will wake him up. You know, he called and said, you got to get me out of here. I'm going to die in here. I said, you're not going to die in there. You're going to die out here. And so that's why I left him there until his court date. And then, you know, we had talked on the phone about going to rehab, and so when we did go bail him out, he got on the phone, not me. Except I did do some checking before. The rehab center needed to talk to him. And I said, fine. So as soon as we got out, we went, and he called. And they didn't have any beds at that time. That was a little disheartening, because I'm thinking, he wants to go now. Don't give me a bed in 3 weeks or 2 weeks. But it was about a week and a half. Then they were able to get him in. But when he was in jail, that was the best I slept, because I knew he was safe.
You know, it's sad, but it does make sense.
Yep.
He's safer in a prison cell.
Yep.
Under constant guard.
Yep.
In a 4x4 rather than out on the streets in the middle of the night.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the best I slept. And then when he was in rehab, you know, I had peace of mind. They had family days on Wednesdays and Sundays. I went to every one, because on Wednesdays they do like an education portion. After you get to visit with your son, they have a speaker, and then afterwards there's an education portion, some kind of video or something. explaining all the things that you had said about the heroin highway and all that stuff. But it was pure hell. It was pure hell.
You know, I could look back at it now and, you know, it's foreign to me. It's really hard to go back to that point, you know, in my mind. But, you know, I hear my mom sit here and talk about this, and, you know, I should say, for me to go back, like, and just try to mentally go there, it's really hard. A lot of it is a blur because I was so high on drugs, so high on heroin. And, you know, I hear things from my mom, and, you know, looking at her, and it crushes me. It crushes me to my core, you know, that I could put so many people. She didn't talk to her brother for a long time, her sister, you know, cousins, aunts. We wouldn't go to, you know, we couldn't go to family parties because of all the destruction that I was causing. You know, heroin just doesn't affect the user. It affects everyone around you as well.
It seems to me like almost the addiction takes a person out of their normal reality and almost transcends them into a acquired sociopath. In other words, you lose all your balance or your grounding and your fear of consequences and your fear of impact on those who care and count most in your life, and almost you lose your fear of the consequences it has on your surrounding support group. And to me, that's a lot like sociopathic behavior caused by the drug.
Absolutely. You know, that's so funny you say that because that's how I felt for a very long time.
Did you get confused? Like, am I a sociopath?
I don't know. I didn't know who I was for such a long time, and you know, I'm still trying to find out who that person is today. But I've you know, at least a better idea of who I'd like to be today. But you know, I wasn't afraid of going back to jail. My only fear was, how can I get high in jail? Because I know I'm going to be sick. I know I'm going to have to do stupid things in there just so I can, you know, maintain this awesome lifestyle I have.
Nick, I think you know what, better than most with the relationships you made along the way that the statistics on recovery from heroin addiction are not good.
I shouldn't even be here right now. I should not be having this conversation.
Why do you say that?
So I wasn't stealing Miller Lights out of my mom's fridge. I was, you know, driving the west side doing heroin and, you know, obscene amounts of it. I literally should not be sitting here today. I should, you know, be having uniformed officers serve me my lunches through a hole this door in the a hole this door. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
A hole in the door that big,
right.
Or I should, you know, be 6 feet under. I should literally
and you know
not
a lot
be
of people who are 6 feet under.
Too many to count. You know, true friends that I've made along the way that are trying to change their lives, and you know, that just couldn't, and they don't have another chance. So there's, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, there's always tomorrow to stop. Like, no, you have to do something about it right now, otherwise you're not going to have tomorrow. Like, that's the reality I don't think a lot of people get, is that, you know, obviously there's such a stigma of how horrible heroin is, but I don't think it really gets as much horrible, you know, ness as it should, because it's
all devastating.
It's unbearable. It's unbearable.
And I understand that this is a forever process. This is a day-to-day.
This is something I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life. I can't, you know, go take a Tuesday off because I want to have fun with my buddies. You know, I take that Tuesday off, I'm going to end up dead. You know, each day I have to do something. I have to, you know, help other people and try to be a good influence, and because that just ensures that I could maybe have another tomorrow. There's no promises, especially in life, and especially in, you know, a heroin addict's life.
You know perfectly well that we had intended to have several families here today, and that we did initial screenings of several people who were passionate enough to tell their story. Sadly, none of them were well enough to come. They were all in different journeys, and there were 3 or 4 families here where the recovering addict or the addict is simply
back out there.
So, yeah, it is horrifying. And it seems to me like this has been a good 12 years of your life at this point. And I think it sounds to me like you realize this is the rest of your life now. So if you had any, let me ask you first, Kim, if you had anything you wanted to say to the community. And I know this is very emotional for you.
Just watch your kids. Just be aware of any changes. I was aware. I went, I didn't do anything about it because I didn't think there was a problem.
Not my kid.
You know, that's it. That's it.
Not my kid. That's
Not my
interesting,
kid.
isn't it? You know, that's so common. Not my kid. And as a
Right.
police officer, I've heard that for 29 years.
Yeah.
My John would never do that. My Amy would never do that.
Right.
With this heroin thing, it's horrifying.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is when my kids grew up and somebody come knocking at my door, you know, I go, what'd they do? It was never not my kid. It was always what'd they do? And then I became the person who went, not my kid. You know, not my kid. I just be aware. That's what that's the only advice I can give, is just be aware. Question everything. If they start getting fidgety when you're questioning them, you know, there's reason for concern. I mean, there's little white lies that they'll tell and stuff when they're kids, but you know, as they get older, just don't take it with a grain of salt. Question it more. You know, follow him if you have to. I mean, if he would have left when I was home, I probably would have followed him, but he was always gone to see where he was going, what he was doing. He was always out.
She would check my cell phone list. I mean, go on the computer and see who I was talking to on a daily basis. And those are hard lies to cover up when the facts are right there in front of you. You have no room to lie anywhere. And that's how my life was. It was built on a lie.
It was built on a lie.
Everything.
I was told to check the iPass, but there is no iPass on the Heroin Highway. So, but there was a red light ticket that came once, and I thought, what are you doing down there? You know, but this was when we were in the thralls of it, so.
Would you suggest to family members that when they start getting these twinges in their stomach, in other words, their parental instincts kick in, to rally the support around you, to maybe do a pretty forceful interdiction and to cut it off as soon as you can?
Yeah, I would, if you know that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I mean, one day Nick would be Nick, and for 3-4 days he wouldn't be Nick. And now that I look back, those were the 3-4 days that he obviously didn't have any money.
Interesting.
You know.
There's nothing left to steal.
Well, Nick, closing thoughts. Anything you'd like to share with the viewers?
Give yourself a shot at life. There's no need to try to fit in with your buddies, to be the cool kid, and you know, if you want a life as a convicted felon, I have a hard time getting a job. You know, this is going to haunt me the rest of my life. This isn't just something that goes away. You know, if you want to have the monkey on your back that, you know, that could wake up at any time, and next thing I know, I'm at the West Side. Again, I'm not above, you know, a relapse or going back out there, 100%. And I want to make that very clear that, you know, I'm no better than the other heroin addict that's out there right now. I just, you know, try to do as much on a daily basis that I don't have to be driving there multiple times a day. You know, if you want that life where you have to lie to your mother and have her on camera tearing up, you know, if you want, you know, jail cells and people dictating your life, and you can't be trusted. That's the hardest thing. Trust is taken away so quick and so hard to get back. So hard to get back. You know, again, it's been about 18 months and she still questions me. And I want to get frustrated, but I have no right to get frustrated.
And he does sometimes.
And then I'm quick to, you know, say, you know, all right, I understand where you're coming from, but, you know, when your own mother, you have absolutely no confidence, no trust in your brother, mother, father, sister, whoever, and nobody can trust you when you're all alone. If that's the life you want, then, you know, more power to you, but, you know, it's not worth it. Nothing good is going to come out of it besides, you know, death.
Well, the story is horrifying. Sadly, it's an all too common story. And what we found is that the recovery statistics are not good. And the only few that have been able to stay on the road to recovery seem to be those who have been able to replace the passion. In other words, the passion from the addiction to the passion of something larger than self. And having had the opportunity, and I consider it a blessing to get to know your son and you, Nick, over the last several months, you're a passionate man. You have a message, you have a purpose, and we appreciate you being here today on behalf of the DuPage County Chiefs of Police Association and sharing that purpose, and to help us get the word out. Because like I said at the beginning, this is no longer an enforcement issue. We can't enforce this away because the fact is there are no fear of consequences. We arrest kids at 9 o'clock in the morning and they bond out 9 o'clock at night, and they're right back on the heroin highway. And it's like, didn't you learn anything? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
I have friends that would overdose, have a wristband on from the hospital they were at, and get out, and a day later still have the wristband on so the ambulance driver can identify them and take them right back to the same hospital because they're overdosing again.
The stories are crazy.
It's unbelievable.
And the fact is, it is a nightmare, but it's a living nightmare. It's here, and it's here to stay. And really the only answer to this nightmare is early intervention through education. And we truly feel that we are blessed to have you here to share your story today. On behalf of the DuPage County Chiefs of Police Association, I'd like to thank you both. And I understand that you guys are very active and you're willing to tell your stories and be a support to families who are going through this.
Absolutely.
And to be a shoulder of support. And we will make that intervention possible by contacting our association. And I know you'll be out there on the road with us as we continue to educate the public on the horrifying aspects of this heroin highway. Once again, thank you both for coming. My name's Kent Williams. On behalf of the DuPage County Chiefs of Police Association, thank you for watching, and thank you for helping us reduce the scourge that we're seeing in DuPage County. Thank you very much.